Greetings, Frederick Little here with another Christian News and Views, episode 290, and this is Tuesday. Well, I got a new article here I want to read to you, and guess what? It's about the Ukraine. Ukraine's Domestic Security Service, the SBU, said Monday that it had carried out an attack on a Russian submarine in the Black Sea port of Novorossiysk, causing critical damage to the vessel and effectively disabling it. In a statement, the SBU said the operation which used underwater subsea baby drones, was the first attack of its kind. Video shared by the SBU showed a large explosion at a port. The Kilo class submarine is used to launch caliber cruise missiles, firing up to 4 at a time, according to the SBU statement. Russia has used the missiles throughout the war to strike Ukraine. The agency added that the submarine is known as a black hole because of the hull's ability to absorb sound and remain undetectable by sonar. It said that class of submarine costs around $400 million. Due to international sanctions, which have hampered Russia's access to technological components, building a similar submarine could now cost up to $500 million, SBU said. Dmytro Pletachuk, spokesperson for Ukraine's naval forces, told Ukrainian television it was the second Russian submarine destroyed in the war, after another Kilo class vessel, the Rostov-on-Don, was hit last year. Ukraine's success in attacking Russian ships in the Black Sea, which dates back to the sinking of the flagship Moskva in April of 2022, had forced the Kremlin to keep its naval fleet in port, making them challenging to target. So here's my opinion on all that. I don't know about you, but I think the whole article here actually speaks for itself. The Ukrainians have consistently proven to be adaptive and capable in drone technology throughout the war. While Russia can outproduce them, the Ukrainian success with their drones dramatically illustrates that Russia is vulnerable and continues to pay a considerable price to its invasion. I believe such success provides a strong bargaining chip at the negotiating table. Now, just an extra word here on this. I think it's a mistake that some people, politicians in particular, but people of all walks of life also, um, they they look at the size of Ukraine, the number of people they can put on the battle lines, and compare that to what Russia can do at its size and the size of its military, and they automatically say, "Well, Russia's going to win." Well, I think after 4 years, going on five, I guess now, um, we we've seen that Russia, with all of its might, with all of its power that it apparently had, has not been able to subdue this little bitty nation. In fact, when they started they still to this day don't call it a war. They call it a special project or something along that line. And they were expected to take over Ukraine almost immediately, within no more than 3 days. Well, it's been a little bit longer than that, folks. And yes, the United States and Europe, because we have provided them with the weapons and so forth, have helped. But it's been the Ukrainians on the land using those weapons who have been able to, like David fought Goliath. They're the David. Russia's the Goliath. And he has stumbled, fallen. He hasn't quite fallen to the ground yet like Goliath did. And when he does, he's not going to be dead. He's going to rise up again because eventually, according to scripture, it's understood that it's Russia that scripture talks about in Revelation. And if that's the case, then it's going to get back up on its feet again, but it's going to turn its eyes south upon Israel. So you could almost call this sort of a dry run and not going too well for them. Going to learn a lot of valuable lessons, and they will rebuild. But right now, the Russians, for them to, uh, they should not be allowed to claim victory when they have not been able to attain victory. I read somewhere not too long ago that uh, after all this time, Russia still has, as far as time, the actual land that they control has shifted here and there. They move forward, they move backwards, they move sideways. But percentage wise, they still pretty much have the basically very similar, if not exactly the same, percent of the land that they had when it started. And that is a rather interesting little fact. If that I've never followed it up to investigate on what they base all that on, but I'm trusting that they're using facts, and they do show maps when they do things like this, and so it certainly looks like that's correct. There are portions of the Ukraine who have been almost under control of Russia from the beginning, and Ukraine has not been able to get its forces in there and do anything about it. On the other hand, there are places where the Russians claim and they want that they have not been able to. They have not been able to uh, keep their troops in there to guard, and so that's something that very interesting to be for a fact, and that is something that has to be in the minds of the negotiators. Russia talks a big battle. They talk a big fight. And they talk about all their victories they've had, but they've had a lot of defeats. And those victories have come at an exceedingly high cost. Now, I realize that President Putin doesn't value life unless that life benefits him. And I realize that the Russian people apparently have that same attitude. But there's a lot of Russians, they may be a minority, but there are more and more of them who are getting fed up with the war. They were told it was going to last a short time, and now the Ukrainians have been able to bring it home to them. That submarine that was attacked and there was an explosion probably cost a lot of lives. Submarine can have a lot of people on it. A nuclear sub, which is probably what that was, a kilo class, I believe that's what that is. Um, I know in our case, I think you can have up to 100 or more people on a modern day sub, as opposed to when subs first came on. I think they could count them on the one hand, two at the most. Uh, the but then we've come a long way since those days. And these submarines can stay underwater for a long, long time, be undetected, and then they strike. How the Ukrainians were able to locate them or locate this one and cause it such damage is beyond the scope that I my understanding, and probably takes somebody of pretty high military knowledge to be able to explain it. But the thing is this: the Ukrainians have been able to do it twice now. And since they're so expensive and it takes so long to build up a replacement, that's a devastating blow to the Russian military. And so I think that it is unwise to give them land that they have not really won, or to even give them the victory. Yes, a lot of people, including Ukrainians, have died, and I join in the sorrow about that. But at the same time, if you go back to our own Revolutionary War, we were our army was made up of volunteers to begin with, farmers. Some of them were hunters, uh, young and old, and they were going up against the greatest army in the world at the time. And there was a lot of bloodshed. A lot of people died. Would we have negotiated a way out of that because of the just because the war was so costly? No. The hearts of our people fought because it was their land. They believed in their land. They wanted to be a separate nation. And in Ukraine's case, they were already a separate nation. They're just fighting to survive, to keep their nation intact. We were fighting to establish it. But the similarities there are pretty great. And I think that we need to remember that whenever we go to a negotiating table, when we support another nation or go against another nation on the negotiating side. And so we have not lost, as far as I know, so much as one person due to Ukraine. And if we did, that person was there not as a soldier, but in some other aspect. May not have even been a government person, it might have been a pedestrian, of a case, somebody who went there, maybe even went there because, even though it was forbidden for them to go, whatever. What I'm saying is that we have not invested troops into this battle. We've invested money, and we invested, in some cases, what we would call obsolete military equipment, but the Ukrainians consider it very highly modern. We have also given them more modern weapons. Europe has really been stepping up to and giving them more and more and more. And so eventually, I think I reported on the security agreements that the United States is willing to give the Ukraine. But I think we need to, when we go to that negotiating table, we hold the upper hand. The Ukraine eventually, if we back Ukraine, Ukraine has the upper hand because they love their country, their land, and they're willing to lay down their lives for it. No matter, even though that's a costly way to do it. And so I think we need to continue to support them in every way we can. So I know there's a lot of lies out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that AI generates, just like people attacked Trump with false narratives. There are people attacking Ukraine and Zelensky with false narratives. Now, is Zelensky perfect? Not by any means. Nor is Trump perfect, nor am I perfect, nor are you perfect. None of us are perfect. All of us make mistakes. All of us are flawed. But I believe that historically, we have a responsibility to support Ukraine. And if we can do that without sending troops over there, I'm all for it. But it's their land. And the only person that should make that decision about giving up land or giving should be the Ukrainians, no one else. Well, that's it for today. I hope this has been helpful to you. Maybe you were aware of this, what's going on there right now with the submarine. But I think it's exciting news. I think it shows that Ukraine still, they have been able to fight and basically a stalemate. Now, long term, they can't win a stalemate by their own. And that was kind of what I think Biden wanted them to do, is just be a stalemate. But we should be in favor of them having the victory, to be able to hold their heads up and be an independent nation. And Russia doesn't really have a whole lot to say about it. With all their big talk, they have not been able to deliver on their promises or their claims. So if you disagree with me, feel free to comment, to disagree. Do it kindly, if you will, but feel free to do so. If you agree with me, feel free to comment. In any case, comment. I look forward to them, and I do promise I will respond to them, and either in kind or maybe right here on this podcast. Well, you have a great day. I'll see you in the next episode.